What's up, everyone? You're listening to the RAS Project. My name is Ivan Temolkov, and I'm your host. On this podcast, we discuss entrepreneurship, personal development, family, tech, and marketing. And as always, it's 100% real, raw, and unfiltered. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special guest that's joining me today on the show. He is a keynote speaker, an executive coach, best-selling author, radio and TV show host. Dom Faussette has been to hell and back, and Dom is a military veteran and a former police officer with 10 years corporate leadership experience. Thank you for your service, Dom. He's also the CEO of Think React Lead, and Think React Lead is a company dedicated to pushing people past their limiting beliefs by bridging the gap between their mind and heart for increased success. Good morning, Dom. How's it going?
Outstanding. How you doing, bro? Good morning.
Doing really good, man. So I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. And this is actually, so I've been following you for a couple of years now, I think, on social media, and familiar with your story, but I never actually had a chance to have you on to talk about, and you've done a lot of amazing things. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on. So let's start off real quick, take us back, those 10 years that I just mentioned in your intro, in your bio, right. And tell us a little bit about like what led up to Think React Lead. How did it all come together?
It's just a culmination of, I'd say, my life. Obviously, I'm prior military. I was Air Force K-9, and then I got out and I was a cop. And once I left law enforcement, I jumped into the corporate space, and I spent about 14 to 15 years there. I had no plans on being an entrepreneur. I was in the corporate space, and I didn't want to be forgotten. Like, I didn't want to retire at 55 or whatever age that is in the corporate space. And I said, let me just start doing videos. I started doing leadership videos. I figured if I did 20 years of videos, right, then about leadership, by the time I retired, I'd have a side business of some sort, be a consultant, and be known within the space. Well, a year and a half from the time that I started doing that, I had to leave. Like it turned into a business, not overnight, and it sure didn't feel like overnight. But it got to a point where, okay, now I have coaching clients, right? Now I'm getting paid to speak. And this is while I was in my job, in my career. And I left. And Think React Lead is something that I've internalized prior to social media. It's think as an executive, react like a soldier, and lead. It was is a mantra that I've used just as a cop or in the corporate space. And it's helped me make decisions quickly and more effective, right? Because people tend to spend a lot of time thinking. And for me, the think process was like 10% of the equation. The react was 80%, and then lead was 20%, was the other 10%, right? Because to me, leadership is influence. You should just be able to do it without thinking about it. It's the reacting and that's where the greatness happens, or the mistakes happen. And you learn from your mistakes, and then you get greater every time that you do it. But most people spend too much time thinking. And I would use that for my employees as I use it for myself. And then I had it written on my wall in a different office or apartment. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking for a name of a company. And Think React Lead was just like big, bold letters. It was there. And that's how that came about. And I started with that. My book, Think React Lead, it came out. I did the podcast thing, and everything, my radio show, everything is Think React Lead. So it's just, I built a brand around that, and I haven't looked back at all.
Yeah. I remember, a couple of years ago when I started following you, I kind of had a brief understanding of your background, but never, I don't think I really ever heard the full story behind Think React Lead. And from what you're saying it was just, a wild idea. It was an intuition. It was a calling of some kind that, you thought, let's face it, am I going to be a cop forever? Am I going to be on the force? Probably not, right? You're going to retire. And what happens when you retire? And when most people retire, I think is when they sort of have these epiphanies about the things that they wanted to do and they never did, or they never took initiative behind. And so, and from what I'm understanding, it's Think React Lead is just that, is you think something, react on it, and then lead with it to where you can impact the world and infuse positivity and optimism into society, right?
Mm-hmm. You nailed it. You nailed it.
So, so how long have you been doing the Think React Lead now?
I left the corporate job or the corporate space July of 2017. So I'm 2.5 years in being full-time self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
And so Think React Lead has been in business for about 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But Think React Lead has been a lifestyle probably for about 10 plus.
Okay.
Right? And it really boils down to decision making. Most people spend way too much time trying to make a decision. And for your listeners, a way to practice, like you go to a restaurant and you look at a menu, you've been to the restaurant before, typically not your first time, you spend a lot of time looking at that menu. Nothing on there is going to kill you. Order, move forward, right? That's the easiest way to put into practice decision-making, because most people just they're afraid to make a decision. It's not that they don't, or they can't, or they won't. There's fear of the unknown, and none of us know. So just do, and then you just react, or you pivot as you decided to make the journey.
Right. So that's a really good point that you mentioned, that I think too many people contemplate and they don't take enough action. They contemplate because it's self-doubt, lack of confidence, uncertainty, a bunch of different things. And so, one of the things so you've been at it a couple of years, really. I mean, technically full on entrepreneurship, like this is your bread and butter, and turning a lifestyle and, call it a hobby or a wild idea that you had into a full-time income. Now, how did you, because I know you do a lot of speaking, a lot of keynote speaking nowadays. And I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of the listeners of this show are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of dreamers, a lot of go-getters. And, there's a lot of inspiration, that comes out of this podcast. And so the thing that I want to know from you is, how did you propel into that space with public speaking?
I started there in the corporate space. Actually, I started there when I was a cop. One of the things I would do as a cop is I would go speak at the schools. Why? Because when I get called to homes for domestic violence, for rape, for murder, there's always kids there. And there was nothing better for me to build a relationship with the kids while I'm talking to them at the school. And then I was comforting for them, right? And that's why I started talking in schools. And I was in my 20s. But in the corporate space, people don't like to speak in front of an audience. And I'd be part of a team, and we would have projects that would need to be completed. And my teammates would just say, hey, Dom, look, if you don't have to do anything. If you just deliver the product when we're finished, like you talk to the teams, we'll do all the work. I was like, done. You don't have to tell. So I don't have to work for like basically 2 months. And at the end, I get to talk for an hour. I'm good. I'm in there. And I noticed that when I would do that, like I got the promotions because the person that speaks is the one that gets seen. And they're the ones that look like they have the credibility. Fortunately, I had the credibility, but it was a moment where somebody gave me close to $1,000, and just before I knew speakers got paid to speak. And he just said, hey, Dom, I got to go to Texas. Can you go speak at this conference for me? I'm like, conference? All right. Only thing I knew about conferences was parent-teacher conferences. That was it.
Right.
And I looked at the money. I'm like, and I'm thinking, okay, how much did you, if you're giving me $1,000, how much did you get paid? And he's like, I got paid $2,500. I'm like, okay, this is a situation. So I legit looked into speaking. And at the time, it was like a $7 billion industry. And this was like 4 years ago. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to do this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But if all I got to do is find an audience and I'm going to get paid and I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk. That's how ignorant I was. Whatever I want to talk about. And I just started researching certifications, and I was like, okay, it's speaking. Nobody needs a certification to speak. But then I realized people need to know that I speak. So at the company that I was at, I would do a lot of I offered a leadership class. So once a month, I would do a leadership class for a couple hundred people to show up. Maybe 30, 40, 50 people would show up. And I bought a video camera and I recorded all the content. I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna post it, how I'm gonna post it, but I need to have proof that this is what I do. And I was just thinking LinkedIn, right? So I would get the content and this is my first camera, and I would upload it on YouTube. And people would see me, oh, Dom, you're a leadership speaker. I was like, I guess. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So why not? And then
Right.
somebody reached out to me and said, Dom, let me explain something to you. Like, he's like, I make 150 grand a year speaking. So I'm thinking, if I have my six-figure salary for my corporate job and I can make that amount of money. Now, he didn't tell me all the work that went into getting there, but in my ignorant mind, I'm like, I can make like 300 grand. That's how that's how naive I was. And I said, yeah, done. So I started my Instagram, I started my Facebook. Then I just went all in. And then I found out this thing about branding. Yeah, then I branded, like, my brand on social media is sick. Because it's consistent and it's crisp, it's very clean. And I just took off from there. Yeah, then it got to, I had the book. I'm like, okay, all speakers have a book, get a book. All speakers have a podcast. I did a podcast, hated it, stopped the podcast. Then I got a radio show after I left the corporate space, right? And I'm always reinventing myself. Like, okay, year before last, I was known, but how do I take it to the next level as a speaker and a coach, right? Radio show, right? Next TV show. So my new radio show launches February this year, 2020. TV show launches. So it's always reinventing yourself. But that's how I got in. Now, for your audience members listening, if you're not willing to, I'm in Arizona. If somebody calls you up on a Monday to speak at a conference on a Saturday and it's not paid and the speaking time is only 20 minutes, would you fly? Would you pay this $400 or $500 just to fly from Arizona or California to New York just to speak on stage for 20 minutes and you're not getting paid? Most people won't. I did that for about the first year or two. I didn't get paid, but then I learned how to sell from stage. Right now I teach my clients how to sell from stage and how to position themselves. But I knew the power of video and I knew the power of stage, because whoever's on stage and has the mic, no matter their experience, they're seen as the subject matter expert. They have the authority.
Right. No. So you mentioned a lot of great things that I think personally I didn't know for a long time. Is that, and the first thing is that I think a lot of people don't understand that when you speak, especially in this digital world, is that people pay attention. Now, how much they pay attention has a lot to do with the contextual value of what you provide. And this is where the public speaking ultimately comes into play, is just that when you think about it, is for years and years and hundreds of years, is that education has always been at the forefront. So ultimately, public speaking provides just that education to an audience. And in modern day and age, a lot of people don't realize that you can actually get paid for this. And what's really actually interesting about this is that social media, which is a really essential component for really anyone. You don't even have to have a business and you're on social media, right? But people don't understand that the value. So the post that you see on social media is value that other people are sharing. Now, it's only a matter of how the context and how valuable that is, because there's also a lot of people that just vent on social media. That's not value.
No.
Value is something that helps you solve a problem, that gives you some kind of a solution to something. And it's actually been a reminder to me, because I'm really big into social video, and now even with the podcast in 2020, doing it in video format and distributing, and people, don't quite understand. And sometimes I have to remind them that you got to understand, having guests like you on the show is value. It gives perspective in things, and that perspective is going to be applicable to a lot of different people, right? In the way that applies not only to their business, but also in their life as well. And I think a lot of people don't quite rationalize that, because the social world is just so noisy that it's becoming harder and harder by the day to separate yourself from the rest of the herd. So, which brings me to kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you is, so, you've been doing this for a couple of years. I think you just mentioned that you're working with people to help teach them how to sell from stage.
Right.
Now, how do you separate yourself in doing that? Like, what's your kind of tactical approach behind, teaching people that, hey, you don't just get up there on stage and talk for an hour or whatever, 30 minutes, but how do you go about teaching people, like how to tactically promote a product or a service on stage?
One of my rules of thumb as it relates to any stage interaction, right, is body language, right? And then you have to make them smile, laugh, and think. I used to say, make your audience smile, laugh, think, and cry. And the thing I did when I first started speaking was I have a lot of dark stories because of my background, and they would be so. I didn't realize that most people don't have my life experience, right? My circle of associates do because we have the same background, and I would just go way too deep, way too dark, and I got pulled aside by Sharon Lecter and Frank Shankowitz on the same day at the same conference, two different interactions, and they both were like, Dom, too dark, way too dark. So I removed the cry. So I make them smile, laugh, think, and cry. And initially, and this is a tip that I think any speaker would need to use. When you are introduced on stage, for example, welcome to the stage, Dom Faussette. Dom Faussette comes on the stage. The mistake most speakers make is they say, hi, everybody, I'm Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker. You don't need to say that. Go so hard that they Google you, which they're not going to Google you nowadays, but they will Instagram you. So there's a couple different things that a person would want to do. Is you want your Instagram to be clutch, right? I'm an Instagram coach. I coach my clients on how to grow their Instagram, but more importantly, how to look at it. Because when you go to an event to speak, nobody's heard of you. Nobody's heard of me for the most part, right? And people are Dom, and they're going to go to Instagram, Dom Faussette. What's the first thing people look at? When you look at a person's page, you go straight to the numbers, their followers.
Right.
You're like, oh, cool. You skip the bio because nobody likes to read. And then you scroll up once, twice, maybe 3 times to see the pictures, right? I do a video. Right. Your pictures got to be nice. Everything's got to be crisp. Another conversation, another day. Now on stage, when you're the speaker, don't hang out in the green room, right? You want to interact with the audience, and you want to start to get to know some names of the people that are coming into the door. So the event starts at 9, probably want to be there about 8 o'clock. So as people start coming in, and this might not be your event. 9 times out of 10, it's not your event. But when they start coming in, you're the first face they see. Past the billboards and the step and repeats, you're the first physical celebrity face, if you will, that they see. And then you shake hands and you talk, and then you remember their names. So audience of 100,000, 10,000, when you get on stage, right, one of the things that you do towards like somewhere in the conversations, you know what, I was talking to Jennifer right before this event started. And one of the things that I learned, right, it shows a slight humility. It shows that you learn something from somebody else, and you're a person like them, but you've kind of risen to the top, right? It makes you normal, right? And then when it comes to selling from stage, it's really not selling. It's bringing up points like client stories, client testimonials, without calling them client stories. And one of the ways that works is very conversational. The other day I was talking to one of my clients in New Jersey, and wonderful CEO. He's got great kids. His family is great. And while they were on vacation, he gave me a call, right? Mm-hmm. I just painted a picture that he's successful. I mentioned family, I mentioned CEO, and I mentioned vacation. And now, without me saying it, I've told my audience that I talk to successful people, that successful people hire me to coach them. Without me saying that, I painted that picture. And one of the things that he said was that being on vacation allows him to be free and da-da-da, right? And I bring that up. And then I'll ask a question. When is the next time you're going to go on vacation? And when you go, what are you going to do to grow your side hustle? What are you going to do to implement confidence in your life? I just painted a mural for them without me boasting and saying that, yeah, I'm a coach, I'm an executive coach. I don't have to say that. It's how you tell the story. And the best place to go to see how that's done in a very quick example is stand-up comedy. Right. Like I study stand-up comedians, because when you go to a comedy show, you sit down and you say to yourself, you can't make me laugh. So now this guy who has a job has to stand up there in less than a minute, make you laugh. And you said you're not going to laugh. Yeah. But how does he listen to how he does it? Range of motion with his arms, his body language, his heighten and his lowering of his voice, right? His deprivating conversations. And that's how I train people to speak on stage. You want to get people to laugh, to like you, show emotion.
Right.
And that's just a start, but it takes practice.
So you mentioned a few very good points that I wanted to touch upon. Is you talked about storytelling, and I think what a lot of people don't understand is because, so a couple of things is, the storytelling is important because it creates emotion and people buy based on emotion, but it also creates relation to people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you were actually talking about, I almost lost my train of thought when you were talking about stand-up comedy, because I watched Dave Chappelle's Netflix special, and I about fucking died, literally. I about fucking died because it was genius. And I was listening to another podcast, actually, of another CEO that's huge into comedy, and he was talking about it too. And kind of goes to your point, is this that you study stand-up comedians. Well, in that particular special, Dave Chappelle was actually being offensive towards the audience, and they didn't even know it, because he was straight up degrading the fucking audience by telling them how bad society is and how much society needs to change. And people are going, ah, ha, 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 just laughing, just like bursting out. And I'm sitting here, and I watched it the first time, and I thought it was hilarious because it was very dark type of sarcastic type of comedy. But then when I got that additional perspective of extrapolating the message and the story behind the stand-up, I'm like, this is fucking genius. Like the way he's telling the story, and this is why, you know, Chappelle doesn't really do many stand-ups anymore, is because, well, in part, the guy's kind of burnt out on it. But secondly, is that I think he's kind of furious with what's going on in society. But so I wanted to touch upon that because you talked about how you study stand-up comedians in their body language, because let's face it, body language, you know, verbal and nonverbal language is essential to the way we create impressions upon others. And I think that public speaking, the reason I wanted you to talk about this is because I think there's a lot of people, including myself for a long time, had a misconception of what public speaking was. I think it's mainly because public speaking has taken sort of a shift. It has gone from very corporate style to a much more casual type that has to do with storytelling, that has to do with expression, body language. And I'm a guy that waves his hands around all the time, you know, and you were talking about that is, you know, like portraying a clear scenario of the message that you're trying to share across, right? So that's really cool that you've been doing this. So, I mean, these days, is that kind of the vast majority of what you do, is just public speaking?
No, it's public speaking I use to position myself, to have some authority position, to be the obvious choice as a coach, right? Most of my time is spent at home coaching. I want to say most, but as of late, I have traveled a lot. Like I'll be in San Diego tomorrow. I was just speaking in Tempe the other day, and it's one of those things that no matter what business you're in, when you can do the things, I think everybody should speak, but when you can do the things that most of society is afraid of doing, then you're just going to win. Most coaches won't speak on stage. I don't care if you sell sneakers. I don't care if you're a week into real estate. If you're in real estate and you've been doing it for a month and you get invited to speak at a conference and there's 1,000 people there and all of them have more experience than you, they won't know because you're the one that's been asked to speak on stage. So I use speaking as a stream of income, and it's done well for me. But it's also my way to connect to audiences, because everybody likes to speak like this. They like to speak on the cameras, and that's easy. I mean, there's a lot of competition there. So I do videos often, but there's not a lot of competition in the speaker space because people are just afraid to do it, or most speakers suck. They're just horrible at it. And if you have a story, you know how to tell, and this is a side note for anybody who wants to be a speaker and you have a story, start doing videos. Your first 50 to 100 videos on social media should not be your dark, I got raped, I lost my mom, for me, I was suicidal, I was homicidal, I'm an ex-cop, I've hurt a lot of people. Like, don't start your social media video journey with that. You want to start with educating your audience, because when you educate your audience, you're providing them insight or information that they don't currently have. When you provide your audience insight and information that they don't currently have, they're going to just pump you up as a subject matter expert. Now, and then after you've done your 50 to 100 videos of educating, and highlighting some positive things in your life, right? Then you say, hey, today I want to talk about something that I talk about a divorce that I went through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today I want to talk about, some of my childhood struggles. But most people do it the other way around. And then they wonder why their message gets lost.
Yeah. Well, you're right, actually, in my mind, because I was about to literally ask you about some tips on, if anyone in 2020, wants to become a speaker, and looks at that as whether it's just a stream of income or making it even a permanent thing for them, is, what are some things, that they should consider. It was really interesting what you said about social videos, because I'm over 100 videos in personally, and just collectively that I've done, YouTube, just social all together.
That didn't happen overnight, did it?
No.
Just so somebody knows, like, it's a lot of work to do 100 videos.
It really is. It really is. And well, ironically enough, it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. It's like, you know what? I can't just pull out shit out of my ass to talk about it. You actually have to have something creative on your mind to say, like you said, that is of value to the audience, and you're not just storytelling, because a lot of people love me for the storytelling, but they're like, okay, where's like really the value? And so to the point, because there is value, but what you just said is I think very important, and something that anyone listening to this episode needs to take note of, is just that lead with the value,
right?
In teaching people how to do things. Like I actually had an old boss of mine that was like, I was just talking to recently. He's like, well, you should do, something on, how to start a podcast or how to optimize your podcast type of thing. I'm like, well, the internet's like full of that shit. Like everybody's like, in fact, I think over 60% of Americans know what a podcast is.
Right.
And like close to 70% of Americans listen to podcasts because it's all about on demand. That's just the day and age that we live in, is that
now.
Yeah, like it's now. But I think what I heard you say is that people will pay attention if you lead with the value and then pair it with the storytelling that kind of creates that companionship of, okay, here's the value. I taught you how to do something. Oh, and by the way, here's how it relates to me from a personal level, correct?
Right. And if somebody's never done a video, I want to implore you to do this, is that I want you to use Instagram. And I don't want you to use IGTV. The easiest way, I'm looking for my Post-it note, but let's just go with my phone. Your phone has a camera on it. You take a Post-it note and you just put it here, right under the camera. People always like, I don't want to talk about. Pick up a book for literally 30 seconds. Look at 3 phrases on there and plug them on your phone, right? And then you just write them on the sticky note. And the reason why I say the sticky note is because a lot of people are uncomfortable looking at themselves. So the sticky note, put it right under the camera. Now, guess what? You don't see yourself.
Right.
Right. And you look at your content. And it's a 60-second video. The way you start your video, this is how I do mine. Welcome to Think, React, Lead. My name is Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker. And the reason why you do that is because you're welcoming them to your company. Right? It doesn't have to be your Instagram name. My Instagram name is Dom Faussette. And then I say, my name is Dom Faussette. So I'm letting them know who I am, your executive coach and leadership speaker. So now I'm letting them know what I do. I was in Texas one time at a race for Ducatis, and this guy from Mexico, we both ride Ducatis. He followed me. I didn't know that on Instagram, but he runs up to me. He's like, hey, you're Dom Faussette, executive coach, leadership speaker with Think, React, Lead. Right now, I was about 200 videos in. Yeah, but that's why that works. So you start your video. Hey, welcome to Think, React, Lead. My name is Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker. Today, we're going to talk about 3 points that I think will be very beneficial to you and your leadership journey. Number 1, always do this. Number 2, never do this. Number 3, try to get a friend to do this. Again, my name is Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker. You guys have a wonderful day. Yeah, that's a 45 to 60-second video. You take it, don't edit it, throw it on your Instagram, and you go on about your business. You don't have to edit it, just throw it right there. And the benefit of doing that is you're going to get asked to do podcasts. You're going to get asked to do news interviews. I've been on Fox, CBS, NBC, other radio shows. And when you go to these major media outlets and you go in the room and they call you to the stage, they're not friendly. They herd you in like cows or like cattle, sit down. They don't know who you are. And they'll say, and then you'll see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome to Fox News. My name is Tammy Olivia. Dom Faussette, thanks for coming in. And they go, it's 3 minutes, you're gone. right? But because you've done so many videos, as though you're already on Fox and CBS.
Yeah.
Fox and CBS, they go there to look to see how you're going to show up on camera. And because it's live, this ain't pre-recorded stuff. And then you don't, 60 seconds, you spend 4 seconds in the beginning, 4 seconds in the end, 5 seconds maybe talking about, or 6 seconds talking about what you do. That's like 15 seconds already. Now, all you got to do is spend 30 seconds on a topic. So now you don't have to spend a lot of time overthinking ideas. And that's going to help your audience. They won't even listen to the 60 seconds if you suck, but you want to be very quick. And now you don't have time to mess up, and you don't have time to spend a lot of time on a story. And all you have time to do is inform them on who you are, inform them on what you do, inform them on the name of your company, inform them on a pain point and an outcome, and you're out. Do that 100 times. You'll build your audience.
So that was literally a powerhouse of info that you just dropped there, because the biggest thing really is that I can 100% wholeheartedly agree with what you said, that video is just where you need to be. You know, they say an image is worth 1,000 words and video is worth 1,000,000. It just creates a much more interactive environment in a face-to-face interaction with your audience, right? Like we are right now. Now, the one thing that you mentioned is I think where a lot of people struggle with is the lack of self-confidence to get on video, because they're worried about judgment. They're worried about, you know, am I saying the right thing? You know, does my hair look good? You know, is the lighting okay? You know, like, do I have something in my nose? You know, like people are just too worried about stupid shit. And as opposed to just get on camera, share your message, be assertive about it, be concise, and then that's going to help you ultimately build up that momentum that'll, like, because that's ultimately what you did that led you up to Fox and CBS and all these major networks. And like you said, is when you get there, they do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's fucking go time. You get on, it's like boom, 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 boom. You know, they don't, because they've already consumed so much of your content on social. They've gotten a good understanding of who you are as a person, right? Your entire approach, your charisma also. And now they just want you to spew what you just did, but doing it in a much more concise fashion. So, you know, it's really interesting that all the things that you just mentioned, because personally, one of the things that I think I want to focus on in 2020 is to do some public speaking, because not only that I've had interest in it, but there's also a lot of people that have been like, you know what, you're really good, but it's just fine tuning that approach. And I think it's finding that formula, which I think you have, is the right formula that's going to equate to the right result to be able to get on stage. And I think the biggest thing that I heard you say is that you're probably going to be 200 videos in before you ever show up anywhere.
Yeah. Serious. Like legit. I mean, I have 3,400 posts on my Instagram. I've been on Instagram for 4 years, right? 2018, I posted 735 times. If you have less than 1,000 followers, if I were you, I'd post three times a day.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a picture, a video, a picture, right? And if you need an example of what that looks like, just go to my Instagram at Dom Faussette, because I don't share anybody. I do not share content that my face isn't on any of my social media platforms. Zero. Unless now, if it's for a client, now that I've established myself, if I have a client, like one of my clients just got a TED Talk, right? He's an officer, a naval officer, and he's got a TED Talk. I'm stoked about that. I'll probably share it this week, right? But if you don't have clients like that, don't share Gary Vee. Don't share Les Brown. Don't share John Maxwell. They have a marketing team that shares them. Yeah, you need to know you. Somebody might see your post, might show up in somebody's feed once in a year. You need that feed to be yours. So all of my quotes have my image attached to the quote. Outside of my wife's birthday that just passed, I have her, but everything is Dom Faussette. So I need your audience to understand, like, this is not the year for humility, bro. Like, this is the year that you get some command presence, get some nads about yourself, and then you focus on you and you build your brand. I don't care if you're a gas station attendant, a CEO, or whatever. Like, you need to have a brand. People need to know your face, because when you go to an event, they may not remember what you said, but they remember how you said it, and they remember what you look like. Yeah. And you have to build that up. Stop posting other people's stuff. And if you're going to be there, be there. So post every day until you see.
That's an excellent advice there, and I'll get behind that any day because,
You post all the time.
well, I mean, what you just said is really kind of proves, and I'll tell this to people too, is like, I don't care that you're on social media. I don't care that you're a social media marketer. I don't care they've been doing marketing for how long. What I care about and what's going to have merit is what you said is the frequency. It's basically, I mean, Gary says the execution, right?
Yeah.
So your execution has been flawless because you found out a formula that has helped you over 4 years build momentum behind a personal brand that has resulted in you doing public speaking.
Right.
And that is a formula that you teach to other people on how to do it because it works for you. And it's so ironic, actually, because I've had 3 or 4 people recently that I've had that conversation. I literally said what you just said. I don't care if you're on Instagram or how long you've been on Instagram. What matters is how you post, what you post. And you said, don't repost shit from other people. Post your own stuff, your face, and do picture, video, picture, picture, video, picture. And the biggest thing is the consistency, because the consistency builds that trust. So picture, video, picture, can you do it for 7 days a week? Yeah. Most people can't even do it for 1 day, let alone 7 days.
Bro, I tell people this all the time. Hey, I post at stoplights. We all go to the bathroom at least once a day. You post there. People do this thing. Well, what time should I post? When you take a dump. What time should I post? When you're waiting to pick up when you're in McDonald's, which you shouldn't be, but you're in there and there's a 10-minute line, right? When you're in line at the grocery store, just pick a picture and post it, a video. Right. If you're struggling, if you can't, to the person that says they have a message they want to give it to the world, if you can't just do this, hey, just pull out your phone, boom, and you want to go horizontal. Hey, welcome to Think Create Lead, Dom Faussette, executive coach, leadership speaker. I am here in Sprouts. Do you guys know what a kumquat is? I have no clue, but it's a mini orange, I guess. I'm gonna buy some, try them out, and I guess I'll post the rest of it on my story. Is this video doing anything for you? No, it's not, but I just wanted to share it with you. Boom, done and done. Right? Now, are all your videos gonna be about kumquats? No, unless you're like a horticulturalist and you're a farmer, you make money doing that. Yeah, but it's
right.
People say they can't, but literally, people ask, Dom, how much time do you spend on social media? I was like, I post and go. I probably spend 10 minutes, but check this out. I don't look at social media until noon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at my comments. I don't need my comments to validate me. Now, did I always feel that way? No. We all get validated by comments, right? I love looking at, like, my audience loves me. And for those of you thinking that somebody's going to hate on you, in all my videos, like all of my posts, I've only had 2 times I was hated on. Some Yahoo on YouTube said, you're an ex-cop, but you're not wearing your seatbelt. All right, cool. And apparently you're not allowed to take your dog into Target. And I took a cute picture of my dog in a Target grocery cart, and like 2 people flipped their lid on his own Instagram page. But that's his page. I've had 1 person talk about me in 4 years of social media. So whatever you're telling yourself, just deliver your message and just get the practice of it.
Yeah. You made a very good point about the haters, and I wanted to latch on that. Is this that it has taken me? So you talked about the validation, and I think we seek validation as human beings because
I love validation.
It creates acceptance, and as a human being, to some part, we like to be accepted by other people, right? But when you get that hatred in social media, we've all gotten it. I actually have realized that even if you're getting hatred and then someone flips their lid on social media about it, it's still exposure for you.
It is exposure. I love when people give me a diverse perspective. Cool, great. It's another comment. Reply to it, not emotionally, but add to the algorithm. It's exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Dom. This could probably go endlessly because I always enjoy these convos. But, in closing, let's just tell people, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you out there on the social space?
Yeah, Dom Faussette on Instagram. My Facebook is Think React Lead because my personal page is stacked. YouTube is Think React Lead. And if you text 602-481-0650, that's my number. If you just text, send it, I will send you some social media tips. So just text me 602-481-0650 in the comment, send it, and I'll send you some information about that.
Awesome. I got to make sure and caption that so people can get on that. Dom, absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for all the knowledge bombs you dropped.
Yeah, man. It was fun. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.